Hello, folks. This is Steve and Abby. Abby is an Idaho Shaggy. Found her on the freeway in Dillon, Montana in April of 2022. Have had her ever since. She's a fantastic dog. Very outgoing, very friendly, loves to hike. Very high energy animal. Anyway, living in our Airstream, traveling the countryside, loving every minute of it. Meeting great people, just enjoying life right now. As a helicopter pilot for many years, did many search and rescues, but we also were involved with welfare checks with remote families as well. There was a dispatch unit that was private off the base that used to contact these folks, remote families, and just make sure everything was okay, get updates every so often. If there was an issue with one of the families not contacting this dispatch unit, they would typically let us know and we would check them out. Well, there was quite a few of them actually, but the one I want to talk to today is about the Paterson family. The reason this one kind of was urgent because it was a couple with very young kids, and the couple themselves were quite young. Hadn't heard from them for about a week, 10 days. Radio silence was unusual in these parts as well. So we got concerned, and we got the crew together, which included myself, a co-pilot, and a couple of techs that went with us, an engineering tech and a med tech, but we also took a nurse with us and a doctor with us, a physician, because we didn't know at what level or at any level if there could have been any issues that we needed these folks. But rather than take chances, because of the time frame, we decided to take them with us. It took us about an hour to get out to the area. We couldn't fly, or we couldn't land any place close to the house. We had to land about a mile away in a makeshift runway. The issue is that it was so dense, the forest was so dense that it just couldn't do it. So we landed on a heliport at that remote area and hiked to the house. House was about a mile away. We got to the house. It was kind of an eerie feeling, this was mid-morning, probably 10 o'clock, and looked at the house. The front door was open, which was kind of unusual. It was cool that morning. I'm not going to say it was cold, but it was cool for that time of year, late October. And so we went into the house. Very eerie, very, very like a haunted house. Just everything was still and quiet. It looks like nobody has been there for quite a few days. Typically the fireplace would be going, and we looked into the fireplace. There hadn't been anything, no fires for the last few days. Anyway, we started looking around the house and found footprints going out into the wilderness. Looks like they were doing a hunting expedition, because it looks like they brought a manual sled with that they carried. They were bringing extra supplies. Obviously they were going to be out there for a couple of days doing some hunting, is what I assumed that they were doing. Anyway, one of the techs found footprints. We kind of followed the footprints as far as we could. We went about 4 or 5 miles out, and we started yelling, screaming. Hopefully they were going to hear us, and in the distance we could hear somebody screaming back at us. And these folks had made a makeshift snow house and snow cave, whatever, in kind of a cave that was on the side of a hill. Anyway, apparently what had happened is the father had broken his leg doing some hunting, what have you. Couldn't make it back to their house, and obviously he was a pretty good sized person, so the two kids and mom weren't going to carry him back. So ultimately they built this little artificial cave to live in, while they knew sooner or later rescue would come. He was the only one that was hurt. I remember seeing him, and not only did he break his leg, but because of the time frame, infection had set in, and it was just so inflamed. There was no way we were going to be able to carry him out of the area there. It was just not going to happen. We didn't have the facilities to do so. The only option we could do was go back, get the helicopter, and do a lift of him into the helicopter as well as with the family. So what we ended up doing is we took the kids with us and the mom. The doctor, nurse, and one of the techs stood with the gentleman. Went back to the helicopter, which took us probably a half a day, 4 or 5 hours to get back there. It was quite the hike, especially with the snow. Having 2 little kids, it was definitely a challenge. Got in the helicopter, got the kids blanketed up extremely. They were just frigidly cold, and they hadn't eaten in quite a few days, were dehydrated, so the co-pilot took care of their needs as I got the helicopter going and took off and went back to the area that these people were at. We airlifted the gentleman to the helicopter, lifted him into the helicopter as with the nurse and the doctor and the tech. We had an extremely full load. I was concerned that we were taking the abilities or the capabilities of the helicopter to the limit. Anyway, we did make it back. It took us a little bit to get back to the base. It took us probably over an hour to get back there. Landed, and the ambulance, of course, was waiting for us there. Took the family to the hospital. It just reminded me how dangerous the wilderness is, and how dangerous Alaska is in general. During this time of getting these people, we saw multiple bears because they were getting their last grub for hibernation. We saw moose. Moose can be so aggressive too, and in the distance we could hear packs of wolves howling, and we knew that they were communicating with one another, probably telling each other where we were, what we were doing, what have you. Animals are so intelligent in their environment. This definitely wasn't our environment. After a few days, I went and saw the family at the hospital. Dad was in pretty rough shape. They didn't know the extent of his injuries until they got into his leg, and he ultimately lost the majority of the leg. I can't remember if it was the left or right leg, because of the infection that had set in. Took a lot of damage to his leg. And so I sat down with Mom and the kids and just we had a talk about was it a good idea to go back? Wasn't it a good idea to go back? And not that I was trying to persuade them one way or the other, but just concerned. I've seen so much good stuff in people that live in the remote areas, but I've seen a lot of bad things too. And I try to kind of go over my years as a pilot, what I've seen, what have I experienced with people. And of course, Mom, the mother, was still kind of just all over the place. She was just very, very tired, very confused. They loved the idea of what they were doing, but was it a practical idea with 2 little kids? Ultimately, they changed the plans, that this was enough of this. They went back to, I think it was Seattle, what have you. Sometimes, I guess sometimes you need to try something if you feel you've got to do it. Well, these people tried it, like multiple people, and it doesn't work out. Boy, living in these remote areas is just unforgiving. We're living in an environment that we don't belong. These are animals that live there that know this environment. We don't. It's not our home. It's beautiful to see from pictures, from the air, from boats, but in reality, I'm glad they made that decision. Ultimately, this family kept in touch with me. The Patersons kept in touch with me for a couple of years, a few years after that. About a year after they went home, the father ended up passing away, and he was not very old, in his mid-30s. In conclusion, folks, I remember on the way home, or on the way back to the Coast Guard station, I looked out the window at the vast, unforgiving land of Alaska. It struck me again how resilient these families were to live there, and how crucial it was for us to be that lifeline should something happen, which we were. That's when you lose people in such an environment. Is it worth it? I don't know. It's an environment that, like I've said before, is just so harsh. There is no forgiveness. If you, and I guess specifically with kids, that's a whole different level, I think, when they take kids into the environment. And I definitely am not judging anyone, but I'm glad that things worked out pretty good for these folks. Unfortunately, the dad ultimately did pass, but mom and the kids, as far as I know, are still doing good today. And it was just one of those rescues that happens every so often through my work as a search and rescue pilot. I've come across many people, different issues, different environments. It's a different world out there, so different. Just people can have just a minor issue like a toothache, and without the proper care, it becomes infected. One thing leads to another, and soon we're called to pick them up 6 weeks after they had the issue with the tooth, and the whole face is swollen from an infection in their gums. So, to me, it's definitely not worth it. Flying above, being there, that cold, the environment with the animals, to me, it's just not conducive to humans. But I understand that people love to try that out and do what they feel is right. They'll feel like they need to do what they need to do. But anyway, I guess everybody, is different in many different ways. Hope you folks enjoyed this. This was, like all my rescues are in my heart. They're very special to me, especially when I'm dealing with these people. Animals too. Animals have a special place with me. And I hope you folks enjoyed it. And if you have any comments, suggestions, put them down. Please let me know. I'll be doing another video next week, probably on some more of the wellness checks. That was probably a third of everything that I did as far as search and rescue and recovery of people that were ill out in the wilderness. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you folks have a great day.